Welcome to another Writing 2 presentation. This presentation relates to our proposal project, specifically the problem or opportunity section. You can follow along with this presentation by looking in Chapter 6 of How to Write Anything, and we're going to use bits and pieces from various pages, specifically the ones seen here. When first considering your proposal, you need to determine if you're looking to solve a problem or take advantage of an opportunity. And you can find all kinds of inspirational quotes about how, well, a problem is just an opportunity in disguise and things like that. And that's all well and good if we want to think that way. And again, if we're making inspirational posters, that's awesome. One of my favorite children's books basically talks about how we should view problems as opportunities for getting better and finding good things in life. And that's really awesome. But when we're talking about an academic or especially professional setting, we do need to know the difference between the two. And so while opportunities often wait inside problems, we need to be able to define them properly and think how we're going to produce that first section around how we want to frame this issue. Most of us probably have a good general sense of the difference between a problem or opportunity, but let's talk more directly and specifically about how that can affect a proposal. If we're thinking about a problem, we're thinking about something that is active and creating negative consequences to whether it's your specific organization or a group or a particular population of people. Again, depends on what overall community you're thinking about here. A problem is a barrier to success, again, for an organization or a group of people, something like that. It's a threat to stability or progress. So in other words, things are going along pretty fine and something arises that causes issues and is a threat. That is a problem. Generally, a threat is going to need to be addressed at some point. We might use the word imperative. In other words, we can't ignore it. We can't just hope it goes away. We can't say, well, it'd be nice if we could do this, but no, a problem needs to be dealt with. So when you're thinking about a proposal to overcome a problem, you want to go into it with a framework of, we need to address this somehow. Here's the way that I think we should do it. And again, the risk might be in just ignoring the problem rather than a risk that might come with trying to consider an opportunity we'll get into in a second. A problem can keep the organization from achieving its goals and objectives. So again, you're going to have to deal with it at some point. An opportunity is something that helps you improve over the status quo or life is normal. An opportunity does often involve risk, and you'll want to address that in your proposal. An opportunity can often be ignored or dismissed without really rocking the boat, changing the status quo. So you can say, hey, here's a great opportunity, but if we don't take advantage of it, if we think it's too risky, we're not really hurting anything. Some organizations, especially the ones that are trying to make a lot of money, some organizations do take more of a mentality that if you're not moving forward and if you're not embracing opportunities, then really you're going backward. Again, as you move forward in your careers, you'll get to know the culture of wherever you wind up in a company or organization and would be able to address that. But for the most part, we can say that an opportunity could be ignored or dismissed, and you're going to have to consider that when writing toward an opportunity if that's what you choose. And an opportunity then can assist the organization in achieving goals and objectives. So maybe if the organization is struggling to accomplish what they want to accomplish, an opportunity might be something that would help them move toward that. Again, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes problems and opportunities can be the same thing. You just need to control how you frame the issue. When you're writing a proposal, then, in this first section, you want to describe the issue in detail, whether it is a problem or an opportunity or sort of both. So you want to use these sort of standard journalism questions like who, what, where, why, when, and how, and really think about this. If it's a problem, okay, what's causing the problem, and who, if there is a who or what the issue is, you want to use some really good detail. If it's only affecting a part of the organization, say where. Again, the why is the big one. You want to think about what the cause for something is because your proposal should address that cause. Another thing you want to think about is visualization. Oftentimes the people that you're writing for, your audience, They may be people who don't have to work with this or live with this on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of organizations, the executive level folks, they may not know what the ground level folks are dealing with. They may not realize that a problem even exists, or they may only see the problem when it affects the bottom line of finances or other data that comes along. So you might have to draw them a picture and use your narrative skills, use your visualization skills, and help them either through describing it in a way that maybe tells a story. Also, you can use charts and graphs and things like that to put the numbers in a way that they can actually see how the problem affects your company. So if you've got like a line graph and things are going up and up and up in a good way, and then suddenly something happens and they go, you're going to say, okay, that's where the problem is, and now let's talk about how to solve it. You also want to use multiple perspectives then. You want to think about why the people in power should care. Because, again, if it's a problem that affects the ground level employees but doesn't seem to affect the executives, they may not care enough to invest in taking care of the problem. So if you're saying, hey, listen, the bathrooms are broken down, the toilets don't work half the time, well, they may not use those bathrooms. They may have their offices somewhere else. Why should they care? But if you can show them numbers on how it affects productivity, about how people are having to wait in line to use a toilet, and as a result, productivity is down because that's less time that they're on the ground floor doing something with the assembly line or whatever your context is here, then suddenly time is money, and they do care about that. And I don't mean to paint executives as evil-hearted people, but a lot of times their job is to look at the bottom line, not at the humanity aspect of it. So you want to turn that information into things that they do care about. So how does this problem relate to what they do care about? Again, oftentimes the bottom line, the finances, things like that. You want to look at the organization's mission or vision. And again, this is going to places their mission or vision is primarily making money. They may say that they're doing other things. You want to look at that. If it's a nonprofit organization, that mission or vision might be more central to what they're doing. So you want to say, hey, this problem or this opportunity, here's how it relates to our mission. It's keeping us from fulfilling our mission. Or this opportunity will help us fulfill our mission even more. You also want to talk about then how the problem affects various stakeholders. And we talked about this already a little bit, but this is a good way to frame it, is thinking about ground level to the 30,000 foot view of the level that maybe the execs have. But you also want this affects your customers or clients, right? So if we need to invest in the bathrooms or whatever, if customers are waiting for somebody to help them because the employees are taking longer in the bathroom because things are broken or messy or whatever, that does affect the customers, that does affect the clients. You want to also then explain what's wrong with the status quo, what's wrong with the way things are. Because again, people often will not see that coming out on the bottom line or will not see it on their own. You need to explain exactly what's wrong. Here are some ways you can better define the problem or the opportunity. First of all, you can discuss why previous attempts to solve the problem failed or were incomplete. And the book talks about this on page 170 here, about how you need to research and go back and figure out and see how people have tried to solve this in the past. And page 170 has a lot of content we have gotten into in the last couple of slides as well. But I recommend that you read that because they do discuss this a little bit more. There's also a consideration about anything that might have changed since the previous attempts. And this is described on page 166 a little bit, as well as on page 170, where you might want to think about, okay, people have tried this before, but here's what's different. Maybe something changed. Maybe the technology has improved. As I say, look for a challenging problem on 166. Say, if you can figure out why others failed. Times change, attitudes shift, technology's improved. Factors like these might make what seemed like an intractable problem more manageable now. And so we want to think about this. So, for example, if in the past, Ancilla College, for example, perhaps we attempted to have more things for student activities and student life. Well, up to a few years ago, everybody was a commuter. In other words, every student drove in from somewhere. In the past few years, we've got dorms now, and we have more students who are living on campus. So if the problem in the past was, well, we didn't have enough things for students to do, well, yeah, but they all drive in from other places, and it's hard to have them at a central location. Well, now things have changed. Now we have at least a significant student population living on campus. Maybe it's time to solve this problem in a different way. We also want to think about what barriers in the way. And sometimes this can be financial, and this is where you're going to appeal to whoever your audience is to help with this. It could be that there are different parts of the organization that sort of are territorial, and you would need to define who does what. It could be a property issue. It could be that things are just done a certain way that you would need to change the way that they're done. You want to think about what barriers in the way of accomplishing your goal here, fixing the problem or solving how you can take advantage of an opportunity. You also want to think about the resistance you might encounter from decision makers or others affected. So think about who's going to make decisions about this. And when you're writing this in your specific project for this class, this might be a little tougher because you may not really know your organization that you choose very well. But as you get more into an organization or a community, you start realizing who these people are. And at Ancilla College here, I'm responsible for a number of things, and I wear a lot of hats. And I might have, like, I'm in charge of a division of humanities. Maybe I want to run a new class that hasn't been run before. I need approval from people. And I have to go to something that's called academic council, and they have to approve it. Before that, it has to be approved by my own division, the faculty members of my division. And I might think ahead and say, okay, I know certain people tend to be resistant, or certain people tend to ask a lot of questions and tend to sort of just not like, immediately jump onto something. And to me, that's a really good thing. I am often one of those people. So I might think, okay, what will this faculty member ask about with this class? Or what will this staff member want to know about this aspect of the class? So you might start thinking already about where some of your points of resistance are, and how it might affect people, maybe side effects, if you want to think of it that way. People who might be affected in other ways. Will it create more work for them? Do you want to get buy-in from them and explain to them why it would help them as well? You need to be able to think about these things as you're defining the problem or the opportunity. I've seen in some organizations where people had great ideas, but they didn't think about the fact that it would add 10 hours more work a week for people who are already having a hard time getting their jobs done in that 40 hours or however it was. And I've seen that time and again, where somebody has a great idea and it would be really awesome, but they don't think about the fact that it would pile a ton more work or stress or other decision making onto other people. They just don't consider that, and as a result, their idea runs into problems when we talk about it in the committee. So you need to think about that stuff. We've saved one of the most important aspects of this first section, the problem or opportunity section, for last, and that is the role of research. And whoever your audience is, they're going to be smart people, you want to assume, and they're going to want to see data to back it up. They're going to want to see research. So you're going to want to bring in whatever data you can to show that there's a problem. Maybe you're showing how something is affecting the money that the organization makes, or how it affects employees, or data about how a population needs a certain thing. You're also going to want to bring in research that's expert analysis and theories about why things work better a certain way. And again, this is going to depend on your community of practice, we would call it. This is going to depend on what you're talking about. But this happens out in the professional world. There have been a lot of people who are theorists about assembly lines, about how things could work better if assembly lines and factories were set up a certain way. So if somebody at a certain factory wanted to change things, they would bring in research and show, see, this famous theorist, this person who studies these things, they had this idea, and then they also showed how it helped this company and this company and this company, and they're going to bring that in to provide good ideas. You also want to bring in that financial information for decision makers. That's going to be the biggest factor. And then, again, specific examples or stories based on real people or situations. Again, you don't want to overdo the emotion, but bringing that in a little bit can help, again, depending on the setting, depending on what you're trying to accomplish here. So we've already learned about research in other classes, and this is a basic part of argument, and of course a proposal is sort of a form of argument. So this dovetails a lot and applies a lot of the things that you've already learned about in classes here, so I'm not going to belabor this point, but just don't forget about the importance of research here. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and learned from it. Much of the content did come from our textbook, but I used a couple of other articles with some information. Those will be posted in our class Brightspace spot, and you can see those below if you want to check them out. This doesn't really include a link that you can directly link from the video, but at least those are there so you know where they came from. Thanks, everybody.